Merry Christmas, everybody! It is your old friend JT here, and as you know, because it is the Christmas season, it is time to decorate trees for some reason. I don't really know why we do that, but I'm very happy that we do. This year, and I've wanted to do this for multiple years, I have decided to sit down and craft some of my very own Christmas ornaments. Now, naturally, these are going to be based on my own interests, but it's going to be a little bit of a grab bag. I've got a list of several ideas I want to try, and in this video, we're just gonna make some Christmas ornaments. So you never know what, well, the thumbnail probably spoiled some of it. I was gonna say you'll never know what we're gonna make, but I'm sure I put some of it in the thumbnail. Anyways, let's make some Christmas ornaments for 2021. So the first ornaments we're gonna make are Blathers and Celeste from Animal Crossing, of course. I'm gonna need a paintbrush, a ruler, a bunch of colored felt squares, some red paint, and maybe a pencil. Oh, I'm also going to keep these amiibo around just to kind of use them as a quick reference. Now for their body shapes, I'm going to use pine cones. These are even cinnamon scented, which makes them even more Christmassy. It's a good idea to find the perfect little kind of round shapes for their bodies. This one, holy smokes, this one will definitely not work. This is a demon pine cone. I'm gonna put down some parchment paper so I won't get paint all over my table, and we're gonna start by slathering up a smaller pine cone to be the same red color of Celeste. I'm doing my best to get into all the little nooks and crannies, see what I did there? So the whole thing is covered in paint. Just to, you just kinda wanna take your time. Be a little gentle because you don't wanna break off any of the little segments of the pine cone. You could also just use flat spray paint, but I don't have any of that handy right now. It'll probably go a lot faster that way though. I'm all done with that, so I'll set it aside to dry for a little bit. In the meantime though, I'm going to go wash my fingers because it looks like I just committed a merry murder. A couple of hours have passed and our red pine cone has fully dried, so it's time to start decorating them. Firstly though, I think it's a good idea to make a pattern of the character's features. That way, we can kind of sketch it out on a piece of paper first. It also allows you to adjust the size and shape a lot more easily before committing to cutting it out of the felt. Cutting out all of the pieces from felt is pretty easy, especially since I got some nice sharp scissors. I would also suggest pinning down your pattern to the material so it doesn't slip around and you can get more accurate shapes. For their chest pieces, I'm just gonna cut out a bunch of triangle shapes and then glue them all on the belly to kind of form that weird diamond checkered looking pattern they got going on. I like it, but it's a little confusing. What is that? Also, once I have all these glued on, I'm gonna flip it around and then trim off all the parts that are sticking off the sides. I'm not trying to be absolutely perfect here. I almost pretty much want them to have a handmade feel. They don't need to be 100% on model. I used some black paint for the pupils on the character's eyes. You gotta be nice and careful with this because the felt is fuzzy and it can smear easily. Celeste has cute little pink blushy cheeks, so I am of course painting those on as well. Of course, we gotta paint some white nails on their footsies too, and I'm gonna paint some details on their eyebrows and wings as well. For Celeste's wings, I'm using a black Sharpie marker for the black tip details. It may have been a better idea to make the wing details out of a colored felt instead of marker and paint. It would have looked cleaner, but I think this will still work. And we can't forget to add the big pink bow on the back of Celeste's head. It definitely makes the character. I just used some pink felt for this, and I think it turned out pretty good. These cute little figures have to hang on my Christmas tree, so I'm just going to cut some glittery red ribbon and make a little loop out of it, then hot glue it to the top of their heads. And there you have it, 2 cute little pine cone ornaments for Blathers and Celeste from Animal Crossing. I think they turned out quite well. I even added their little tails on the back. Moving right along, we're going to make a Christmas ornament based on my all-time favorite pair of shoes, the Airwalk Jim Plastics from the 1990s. I'm starting by just making some quick sketches to give me an idea of the shape and the size. I'm of course using the actual shoes for reference, and I've decided for the design, I'm going to have the shoes kind of hanging one in front of the other like this, so it's a pair of shoes instead of just one. This also gives it, some dimension. I plan on making genuine wearable replicas of these shoes for a video next year, so I have lots of extra vinyl fabric to use for the main material on this ornament. I'll be using a white Sharpie paint pen to add some details later on, and also white and black foam, so there's not too many materials on this one. Now the design I'm going with here is going to have a few layers, that way it's not just totally flat. So because of this, I'm cutting out the basic shapes of each shoe from the white and the black foam to begin with. For the actual vinyl material, I'm doing the same thing, but I'm pinning down the pattern on the shoe's outsole area so that it won't make a hole in the section that will be used. Next up, I'm using the paper pattern that I made earlier as a guide for where I need to cut off the white foam bottom of the shoes, like the outsoles. The black foam that we cut out earlier will also be used as the backing pieces to kind of add more stability to the ornament. As I said, I want multiple layers in this design, so now I'm cutting another piece of vinyl plastic to be used for the front section of the shoe, once again using the drawing I made to help me determine the size and the shape. The insides of the shoes are of course white, so I'm tracing the opening area here with a pencil, and then I'm going to simply cut out that piece. And of course, now I'm just cutting out a version of that missing section from the white foam. It's time to start bringing some of this together with our trusty friend, hot glue. I'm trying to be as careful as possible though, so I get the pieces in their correct space to properly form the shoe design. Of course, I can always trim the shape up with scissors afterwards, kind of fix it up, make it come together a little better if I got some of this wrong when I glued it. For the other shoe that is featured behind, I'm just basically repeating the same process that I went through for the first one. For the laces, I kind of like this idea. Instead of just using white foam, I thought it'd be very cool to use the string on this old tote bag. It's not as thick as real shoelaces, which is good since this is a small little ornament, and the string even has a nice shoelace-like texture, so it's perfect. But we'll do the laces last. For now though, I want to focus on the iconic A symbol that is featured on the outside of the shoes. It needs to be as close to a perfect circle as possible, so it helps to look around for objects that can be traced. I decided to trace around the bottom of this Sharpie cap. It seems like a pretty good size, and I'm using just a flat cardstock paper because the white foam would make the symbol stick out too much from the shoes. I didn't like the way that looked. I drew a little A symbol on this black vinyl here, and then I glued it onto the side of the shoe. I followed that up with the fun part of drawing the white stitching details on the shoes. I was a little nervous though, I gotta be honest, because if I mess this up, there's no undoing it. You can't clean this off of the vinyl, it's kind of there forever. Then I just used a pen to write Airwalk on the bottom outsole here, and as you can see, these are really coming along. We're nearly done. Which means it's finally time to add the laces that I talked about earlier. It's just a simple matter of cutting little strips out and then hot gluing them in the right places on the shoes. I even decided it would be fun to make, fake little ties at the top for added detail. And now, for the big moment of gluing it all together and then making a little hook in the back out of sparkly cardstock paper so they can properly be hung on the tree. And there you have it. Our little pair of sexy, shiny Airwalk Jim plastic shoes as a Christmas ornament. I think I'm probably the only person in the history of the world to do this. I'm very happy with how these turned out though, and I can't wait to actually make a wearable pair of these next year in a video. Now our third ornament requires lots of supplies. A sponge, felt squares, googly eyes, and pipe cleaners. That is because we are making Spongebob Squarepants himself. Now the sponges are a bit too large for what I'm trying to do here, so I'm just cutting them in half. We're going to be drawing some inspiration from the amazing stop-motion SpongeBob Christmas special that came out in 2012, so I'll leave the DVD case around for inspiration. Now our buddy might be a little cold though, being naked, so it's probably a good thing to start off by giving him some clothing. I'm just simply measuring up the size of the sponge and then cutting out the felt for his white shirt. I'm gluing it all on as I go. And we gotta get those iconic square pants going too. And I essentially just did the same thing for those, but I made them a little bit shorter so that his shirt wouldn't get covered up and it would stick out a little bit on the top. We don't want SpongeBob's, unmentionables showing up under here, so I'm gluing an extra piece of brown felt to cover up his pants. I think that'll be a good idea. And I thought it would be kind of fun to use pipe cleaners for SpongeBob's arms and legs, kind of really giving it that crafty look. So after I cut them to the right size, I started making his white shirt sleeves from felt. He's gonna have the buffest, most manly pipe cleaner arms on the Christmas tree. And I'm making his belt out of black foam. I just kind of cut up little tiny pieces, and then by spacing them apart a bit, it'll give the illusion that it's holding up his pants. You gotta remember to do this on the sides too, otherwise his belt wouldn't really be holding them up properly. Oh, and we can't forget about his white shirt collar, so I'm gluing that on now. I should mention, my hot glue gun is very poorly taken care of. It's all burnt, covered in webs of old glue. It looks like a mess. I apologize for that. Oh, but on a happy note, it's time to glue on SpongeBob's iconic red necktie. Hot glue can get a little messy and stringy, so it is a good idea to take a moment as you're working to sort of clean it all up and, make sure it's not too messy. But it's the moment we've all been waiting for. It is time to add the googly eyes. They might look a little silly, but I'm happy I went in this direction instead of making them out of foam. Googly eyes definitely add to the homemade aesthetic. And for SpongeBob's thick, manly eyelashes, I'm going to use black foam that I cut real thin. It's a good idea to just take your time on this part so, the glue doesn't get gobbed all over the place. These are very tiny things we're gluing on here. You can always trim them with scissors too to get them to be just the right beautiful length. Look at this! He's starting to come together. I can almost smell those Krabby Patties being cooked up. But SpongeBob cannot smell them because he doesn't have a nose yet. So I decided in order to give his facial features some dimension, we're gonna cut out and carve them from the extra sponges that I have. So I'm doing this for his nose, as well as his cheeks and his upper mouth. I'm also going to cut out a little piece of red felt for the inside of his mouth. And then I added a couple foam buck teeth to complete the face. He's pretty darn funny looking, but I kind of love this. For SpongeBob's hands, I'm just taking some pipe cleaners that I cut to the correct size, and then I'm twisting them around each other to make the fingers, and then after that, I'm just gluing them to his arms. His little stick legs are built the exact same way that I made his arms and the shirt sleeves. Of course, SpongeBob has some very styling socks, so I made them by using red and blue Sharpie markers for the stripes and then gluing them to the yellow legs. Ooh, look at him. He's almost ready, you guys. Of course, we do have to give him some shoes. So for those, I'm just gonna cut out some shapes out of black foam and then glue the two sides together over his leg. I could have used clay for his shoes, but I don't know. I just went with foam instead. And there he is, ladies and gentlemen, SpongeBob SquarePants. I love how he turned out, but there is one thing missing, and that, of course, is a wonderful, holly jolly, festively fancy Santa hat. Now, our buddy boy is absolutely ready for Christmas season. So I hope you guys have had some fun here tonight, and actually, hopefully this encourages you to make some of your own Christmas ornaments. Even if you don't make as many as I did, or whatever, whatever kind you want to make, just go do it. It's really fun to have some Christmas projects to work on with, like, making little crafts and things. So thank you for joining me, and I will see you guys really soon with more Christmas Jumbo Jango Jolly Extravaganza fun. That was a terrible outro. Ah!